Namaskara and welcome to all of you to our next session on yogic life. So, we are actually going to continue our discussion on what is Dharma. So far what we have talked is that we have talked about what it is to be a human being, how a human being is different from an animal, and also how there comes a certain point in everybody's life when a human being realizes that they no longer want to pursue the worldly satisfaction they had been so eagerly seeking. So this means they were trying to gain satisfaction through worldly pleasures such as fame, money, power, food, physical attractions. So all these manifestations of animal nature within us, because we have evolved from animals. So at certain point in every person's life, we want to know more about, right? We want to know more about ourselves. So this actually symbolically, this is what we mean when we talk about the eyes opening, right? It refers to the inner eyes in the sense that there is something more that one glimpses, which is not being satisfied by the life that they have been leading so far. So this shift is something very new, is a critical moment in a human being's life. Up until that point, they were essentially an animal in the human form, looking human on the outside but dominated by animal tendencies on the inside. Now they are in the process of shifting to being truly a human in that form, right, inside and outside. So this is indeed what we refer to as dvija, or we refer to as second birth. Dvija means second birth. So the first birth is the physical birth. Everyone starts as an animal in the childhood, right? Because when we are a child, all our vrittis are basically to eat and sleep, right? Those are all animal dharma. At some point in life, not necessarily in every life, but in some lifetime, a human being experiences this shift when the desire to seek something deeper becomes dominant. So they may not clearly identify what it is, but they know that it is not getting satisfied by their previous pursuits, right? This shift is what we call as a second birth, dvija. So human beings have a thirst for limitlessness, which is the essence of the dharma of human beings. So in the second part of this discourse, what is dharma, we began to further characterize what this infinite is, right? We used terms like cosmic entity, consciousness, supreme consciousness, paramapurusha, and brahma. We are moving towards the feeling that every human being can have inside themselves, when they close their eyes, something immutable, very, very deep, without a beginning or an end, which they can feel when they distance themselves from their senses and connection with the outer world. So essentially what we're talking about is the sadhana. So when we go deep inside, right, we experience something that is without a beginning and that is without an end, and that is only possible when we distance ourselves from our sense organs and the objects of the external world, the connection with the external world. That deep inside we can feel that only when we separate ourselves. So we said that when looking at the night sky, the ocean, or a mountain peak, a human being gets a certain thrill inside. However, this is indirect, because it is experienced through the sense organs, by the senses, by looking at something that is not infinite. It resonates with something inside of us, which is why people like these experiences, they enjoy these experiences. But however, going to the mountains and doing sadhana are very different things. Simply going to the mountains and looking around is not the same as doing spiritual practice. The true understanding comes from when you close your eyes and go within, right? Accessing something the mind can reach but the eyes cannot, right? So we also started talking about how the actions are performed, right? How the actions are performed. We talked about the uh, that every action is performed with the help of the physical organs, the indriyas, the 10 indriyas. Even though it appears these indriyas are directly doing the action, but these indriyas cannot do the action without the assistance of the mind. It is the mind that works behind all these indriyas. If the mind is not connected with the indriyas and they're not present in that moment when we're doing a particular task, then we are not able to successfully do the task. Even though we are doing it, looks like we are doing it or we are looking at something, but we are not looking at it if the mind is not connected with it, right? So we said that the mind has, so the mind is an important component in any action, whether it is area of knowledge or in the area of the physical action. So we also talked about that the mind has three components: chitta, aham tattva, and the mahat tattva. Chitta is the done I, aham tattva is the doer I, and mahat tattva is the feeling of existence, I exist. So we said all the three components are very essential. When we look at a book, the chitta takes the image of that book, right? The rupa tanmatra from the book is captured by the chitta, and chitta is like a movie screen. It projects the image of the book, and the aham tattva looks at the book. So aham tattva is the one that gives instructions to the chitta. When aham tattva decides to see a book, it gives instructions to the chitta, and the chitta then takes the image of that book like a movie screen, and the aham tattva sees the book. All this is possible only if there is mahat tattva, the feeling of existence, the feeling of I exist should be there. Only then the aham tattva can actually do the action. So we saw all of that, and we talked about this tanmatra. So tanmatra is the a microscopic fraction of a wave that radiates from the object and received by the indriyas. So it actually, the indriyas are the one that receives the tanmatras, and the indriyas then transfer the tanmatras to the chitta, and the chitta actually takes the image of the book. So the chitta does not capture the tanmatras directly. The chitta the mind interacts through the indriyas. The indriyas are the one that are receiving the tanmatras from the external object. So this is how the process of perception happens, how we get the knowledge of a particular object. It can be anything. It can be visual, or it can be, whether you're hearing or you're seeing or you're tasting or you're smelling, like all the five senses, right? So this is the same process that works, right? Whether it's the sound tanmatra, whether it is the rupa tanmatra, or it is the touch tanmatra, sparsha tanmatra, rasa tanmatra. So all of these tanmatras are captured by the respective indriyas, right? So eyes capture the rupa tanmatra, the nose captures the ghrana tanmatra, the smell tanmatra, ears capture the shabda tanmatra, and then your tongue captures the rasa tanmatra. So like this, the tanmatra from an external object is captured, and the chitta takes the image of that. If it is a sound, the chitta takes the image of that sound, right? It just becomes a sound. The chitta becomes a sound, right? So that is how the process of perception happens, we said, right? So these three components constitute the mind, and we also said that we talked about the chitta has the capacity to take the form which aham tattva wants, right? So that is the paragraph we've been reading. I want to again read that paragraph and proceed from there. It is on page 5. It has already been explained, that chitta, aham tattva, mahat tattva, that paragraph. If Chandramouli Mohoday, do you want to take it?
Sure, Mohoday. It has already been explained that Chitta, Aham Tattva, and Mahat Tattva or Buddhi Tattva constitute the mind. Chitta only has the capacity to take the form which Aham Tattva wants. Similarly, Aham Tattva only has the capacity to perform actions. It can only work. There must be something to make it work. That something is Mahat Tattva or Buddhi Tattva, which gives one of the feeling of I. Which gives one the feeling of I. This feeling of I is derived from the mind, and this I in the mind makes Aham Tattva and Chitta perform their respective functions. Without this I, it is not possible to feel or see a book, even if under the influence of Aham Tattva, Chitta takes the shape of the book. But then this I is only a part of the mind. That is, there is another I which is processing I, or I which knows that there is mind. The
Possessing I.
existence of I.
There's another
Kshamita,
I. There's another I which is the possessing I.
oh, yeah. That is, there is another I which is the possessing I, or I which knows that there is a mind. The existence of I in the mind only proves that there is another real entity which is beyond mind, which knows the existence of mind. This I, which is witnessing entity and witnesses the existence of mind and the existence of Bodhisattva or the feeling of I, is called Atman or unit consciousness. Thus, through introspection and concentrated thinking, one observes that Atman and mind, that is, unit consciousness and mind, are two separate entities. So, do you want me to explain what I understood, Nadia, or not?
Yes, please.
Okay. And it's continuing from the previous discussion, that there is Chitta, Aham Tattva, and Mahat Tattva, or the Buddhi Tattva, where Chitta gets the inputs from the Indriyas through Tanmatras, with the instructions or with the wish of the Aham Tattva. It will be able to see what's on that particular Chitta and understands or process the actions. But then even Aham Tattva operates only because of the Mahat Tattva, or the presence of the I. Without the feeling of the I, even the Aham Tattva cannot function, or cannot do its action, basically. But then that is part of the mind, that I. But then there is, it itself cannot understand or self-realize that there is I, and there must be some other entity which is helping process that I, and that entity is the Atman, or the unit consciousness. If I'm not wrong from the picture, it was the Jivatma. So through introspection, we can see that that Atman is observing the mind, and that is the unit consciousness, and mind are two separate entities, is what we can understand from this para.
Yeah. Yes, more than nicely said. So, this paragraph is talking about how these are all so interlinked, right? In a way, it is like talking about the limitations of Chitta, Aham Tattva, and the Mahat Tattva, right? Each of them cannot operate independently, right? Chitta has a capacity to take the form that Aham Tattva wants it to, right? And the Aham Tattva is the doer I, and Chitta is the done I. Aham Tattva only performs the action, so it does the work, but even though Aham Tattva does the work, but there should be something else which makes the Aham Tattva do the work, and that something else is the Mahat Tattva, right? So that is the feeling of I. So Mahat Tattva is the cause for the Aham Tattva to actually do some action. If Mahat Tattva is not there, if the feeling of I exists is not there, then Aham Tattva will not be able to do any action. So this Mahat Tattva is also part of the mind. So when we say there is Aham Tattva, there is this mind and all that, then who has that awareness that there is mind, there is this mind, right? We say my mind, right? Mama manaha, mera man. when we say that, who is that saying that mera man, right? So it is that atma, which is the ultimate consciousness, that is actually experiencing the mind. So because there is something else that is saying, oh, this mind is there, it is acting like this, right? So that is so what is it that's actually experiencing the mind? So it is the atma, it is the unit consciousness, that is the atma, which is experiencing the mind. So chitta has tremendous capacity, right? It has tremendous capacity, but it has a designated task, the task that is assigned to it by the aham tattva. So that is to take the form of what the aham tattva wants it to take, right? Chitta cannot just go on its own, do something. The aham tattva needs to give that instruction to chitta, and then whatever the aham tattva wishes, chitta does the job, right? So aham tattva can do all kinds of work, right? It can think through different kinds of problems, it can do all kinds of things, it can do all kinds of actions throughout the day, right? It's very, very active. So but the inspiration that it gets, that the free will is conferred by that I feeling, by the mahat tattva. That swatantra ichha for the aham tattva to do whatever it wants to do is conferred by the mahat tattva. So the aham tattva is also having a lot of capacity, varied capacity for different types of activities. So this is all possible because of having a developed mahat tattva, a fully developed mahat tattva. Human beings have a fully developed mahat tattva, and as a result of that, the aham tattva has tremendous capacity for doing different kinds of activities, right? So in lesser developed living beings, whether it be a single celled organism or an insect or a worm or even a dog or a leopard or any kind of tree, so they do not have a fully developed mahat tattva, right? They have aham tattva, but they are not, aham tattva is not inspired by a fully developed mahat tattva, so they do not have that awareness of what they are doing, right? So the when you look at animals, they are guided by their inborn instincts, they're not inspired by the mahat tattva. If they're inspired by the mahat tattva, then they would have got this free will, swatantra ichha. Human beings are inspired by the mahat tattva, therefore they have this faculty of swatantra ichha, whereas animals don't have that. So they don't have the ability to consider all kinds of actions, right? So they do not have this viveka, discrimination, ability to understand what is right and wrong, right? So human beings, on the other hand, because of the they are inspired by the mahat tattva, they have a fully developed mahat tattva, they have swatantra ichha, they can do all kinds of activities, they can use their viveka, the discrimination facility, they can understand what is right and wrong, what is wrong, right? So compared to other beings, that is the advantage of being a human being, right? We have a fully developed mahat tattva, whereas other beings don't have a fully developed mahat tattva. So as a result, it limits the ability of their aham tattva in many, many ways, right? Whereas human beings have a more developed mahat tattva. So for them, the aham tattva is guided by the inborn instincts. For animals, in the case of least developed creatures like single celled organisms, then their inborn instincts are directly acting on the chitta. They don't even have a well developed aham tattva. So but for human being, not only we have the feeling that I am, but we also have a feeling that I know that I am, right? So we have a fully developed mahat tattva. It's not just I am, but I know that I am. Like people talk about that, like, right, mera man kharab ho gaya hai, they say that, or they talk, when they talk, they say my mind is not working today, my mind is not properly working. So they say, oh, this is my mind, right? So when we say this is my mind, who is it that's saying that this is my mind? So there is some entity which is separate from mind, which is saying that this is my mind. So just like we say my hand or my legs, like that, it's my mind. So that awareness, that knowledge that I have a mind, right, is because of that, that Jnatra Satta. Jnatra Satta is the Atma, the Jnatra Satta, the Sakshi Satta, one who's always constantly observing everything that we are doing, right? People like think that, oh, it is only known to my mind. They just go to some corner and they think that, oh, I'm doing something in secret, nobody is watching me. But actually there is this Jnatra Satta, there is this Atma which is watching everything we're doing, good and bad, right? So several times, when we're wanting to do something, whether it is good or bad, we're thinking, oh, it is only known to me, nobody in this world knows it. But actually this Sakshi Satta is watching everything. There is nothing hidden, right? So there is nothing called a secret. There is like only deep in my heart. No, nothing like that. Everything is known by this Atma. So we know that the Jivatma and the mind are two separate entities, right? So they're even though they are two separate entities, they always go hand in hand. They go together. It is not even though we for our understanding we say they're two separate entities, but actually they're so intertwined that essentially they are like one entity. So the mind cannot operate independent of the Jivatma. So the mind gets its meaning because of that, because of that Atma. Without that Atma, the mind does not get, it cannot do anything, right? If Atma wasn't there, the mind is just non-functional. It can't do anything. So it is from the power of the Atma that the mind is able to function. So even the Mahat Tattva, which we said is more powerful than the Aham Tattva, the Mahat Tattva gets its power from the Atma. So that is how the Jivatma and the mind, it functions. Okay. So I actually also wanted to the questions that were asked in the last class, right? So Chandramouli Moday, you had a question about if somebody is mechanically doing something, right? Even then the mind is involved. Is it involved, right? Because I'm just doing so mechanically. I'm driving a car, right? My mind is not even involved in it. That's what we feel, right? So we have this conscious mind and we have this subconscious mind, right? The conscious mind attends to all works, right? And that happens with the use of the indriyas. So when the conscious mind does any work, it cannot do any work without the use of the indriyas. Like for instance, if I'm seeing something, right, or I'm doing something, then my mind is always involved, right? It is the conscious mind which has a direct interaction with the indriyas. The subconscious mind, what does the subconscious mind do? The subconscious mind, it manages the memory of things, the worldly memory of things which happened in this life, right? So like when we do things in a repeated fashion, like driving a car, eating food, or anything like combing hair or brushing teeth or anything, right? It is the subconscious mind that integrates this habitual knowledge into the task that we have at hand, so that it appears that it is being carried out mechanically without much effort, right? We're just doing it so mechanically, it's not like we're thinking about it. But it is important to understand that even there, whatever task, even though we might have done those tasks like zillion times, right? So even when you're trying to do it very, very mechanically, even there the conscious mind and its connection with the indriyas is needed, right? If the conscious mind is not active, that means the person is actually sleeping. So during the sleep, the subconscious mind is active, right? During sleep, the conscious mind is not active, but the subconscious mind is active. So in that subconscious state, we cannot drive a car, right? So when we are sleeping, we cannot drive. We know so mechanically, we know that we drive a car. So why aren't we driving a car in the night when you are in sleep, right? So by that we understand that during sleep, the subconscious mind is active, not the conscious mind. So during sleep, we cannot able to, even though it is so mechanical, we cannot drive a car in sleep. In that state, we cannot drive a car. So by this, it's very apparent that the conscious mind is needed to drive a car or do anything mechanically, no matter how much practice one has in a particular activity, whether it's driving a car or eating or brushing, right? So when we are awake and we are like driving a car mechanically, right, because we've been doing it every day, so even then, so in that situation, is the conscious mind involvement of the conscious mind needed? That's the question, right? So even in that situation, even when we are doing a mechanical task, the conscious mind is very much required, right? So it is the connection of the mind with the indriyas, then the eyes actually see the road, right? So even if you're driving a car, right, so your mind is involved in that action. The chitta takes the image of the road, right, and that is how you are going forward. So like for instance, if you're driving your car and you're deeply involved in, like somebody is driving a car and that person is deeply involved in you know, a conversation with somebody who's either in the car next to them, or maybe even talking to somebody on the mobile phone, then you know the mind is now diverted by the conversation, or is diverted by the conversation on the phone, or to the person who's sitting next, and that becomes a that in that situation, even though it is a mechanical mechanical work of driving, but if the conscious mind is not paying attention, right, because the mind is involved in you know having the conversation, so in that case, even though your eyes are wide open and you're looking at the road, but if the conscious mind is involved in having the conversation, then you're diverted, right? So as a result, what happens is that it is not bringing the image of the road onto the chitta, right? So because the chitta is now is involved in doing something else, chitta is engaged in the discussion, right? We know that the mind can only do one task at a time, it cannot do multitasking, right? So then we notice that even though there is even though there is a red light, we are supposed to stop, we may not stop and we may continue driving, and there is a possibility of an accident, right? So this is actually, it's very common. We see that all over the world, that people who are engaged in having a phone conversation, talking on the cell phone, they get involved into accidents because their mind is not involved at that point in time, is not connected with the indriyas, engaged in driving, in the driving activity. It's not focused on the driving activity. As a result, they get into accidents, right? So from this we can understand that the conscious mind is very much required even in mechanical actions, right? So that is why we see that in several parts of the world they say that while driving you're not supposed to use your mobile phone, right? In fact, in US you're not supposed to use your mobile phone while you're driving a car. So even in mechanical actions in the world, involvement of both the subconscious mind and the conscious mind are needed, right? They work in a very, very coordinated manner, right? So otherwise, even in mechanical activities, we may not be able to get the task done properly. So if it's driving a car, we may get into a car crash. And if you're if you're eating your food, and if your mind is not involved in eating your food, and you're thinking something else, there is every possibility that you can bite your tongue, right? So it happens that you're not involved in eating, you're just thinking about something else and you're mechanically eating, and there is a possibility that you can bite your tongue. Or if you're taking something hot, maybe you're taking hot water, right? It's possible that you can spill the water on yourself, right? So that is why it's important that any activity we do, that mind should be involved, right? So even like when you're typing on the computer, it is so mechanical, right? Sometimes it's so mechanical, you keep typing, but if your mind is not involved, then even though you're taking a lot of help from your subconscious mind, right, and making it very mechanical, but if your conscious mind is not involved, then this act of typing will not happen, right? Will not be possible. So therefore the conscious mind is very much involved in any task that we do, right? So even though it appears to be mechanical, but the conscious mind is involved, and right, so we cannot do two things at a time. So if right, if like two people are like talking to each other, right, so then they're looking and also they're talking to each other, so it looks like as if they're doing two things, they're looking and they're talking to each other, but actually the mind cannot do multitasking, it can only do one task at a time. So it is doing very, very quickly, it's just looking, and then next second it is talking, right? So it's doing it is not doing two things at a time, it's doing only one thing at a time, but it's doing it very very quickly, right? It's just alternating between the two activities, the activity of seeing and listening, right? So it appears as if it's very very continuous, but right, but the person is involved in two activities, right? Okay. uh, okay, so that I think clarifies your question. Do you have any other questions?
Well, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So we can now move ahead, going to the next paragraph. Pushpalata Bhagini, do you want to take the next one?
Bhagini. Atman or unit consciousness and mind are two separate entities, yet they must be related to each other. In the first instance, it appears that I am aware of my existence. Then the same I that appears to prove my existence makes me work, and a part of my mind called Chitta takes the form of the book through Tanmatras to enable me to see the book. The I that gives me consciousness, or the I which witness the existence of my mind, and therein of the I which gives the feeling I exist, is Atman or unit consciousness. The I that gives the feeling of I exist and sees the book, he exists, and also proves the existence of Atman or unit consciousness is Mahatattva. The I that works or sees the book is Aham Tattva, and the portion of the mind that takes the shape of the book and enables Aham Tattva to see is Chitta. This shows that the same I has a different function at each stage. How these different functions on the same I come about needs further clarification. The statement I exist presupposes the presence of I, which is the witness of this existence. This witnessing entity is Atman or unit consciousness, and its presence is established by the feeling of existence that one displays by one's every action. That this assertion of I exist is different from Atman or unit consciousness is seen from the fact that this I presupposes the presence of my Atman or unit consciousness. This feeling proves that unit consciousness is only consciousness, and that without consciousness existence is not possible. Without consciousness there can be no feeling of existence. What then is going to witness the existence of I? Consciousness is therefore essential to create the feeling of Mahatattva or Buddhi Tattva. To be explicit, Mahatattva or Buddhi Tattva cannot exist without Atman or unit consciousness. So this paragraph says that though the mind is required to act upon the tattvas, the chitta, aham tattva, the mahatattva, the atman or the unit consciousness is necessary, and the atman or unit consciousness and the mind are two separate entities, and they are related to each other. So in the first instance, it appears that I, the capital I, is aware of my existence. That the same I that appears to prove my existence make me work also. So it only helps me see the book and helps the chitta to take the presence of the book through the tanmatras, and I am able to see the book. This the I then gives me consciousness, or which witnesses the existence of my mind, and therein the I gives a feeling that I exist, and this I exist feeling is called Atman or the unit consciousness. So now this unit consciousness only helps us to helps the Mahatattva to give the instructions to the Atma Tattva, I mean to make the Atma Tattva work, and this Atma Tattva makes the Chitta to work through the Tanmatras, receiving what we have to see, or what we have to listen, or what we have to touch, or what we have to speak. So without, what is then going to witness the existence of that I? Okay, the mind which works, for the mind which works, and this is the consciousness, and without this consciousness the Mahatattva is not going to work, and this without this the Atma Tattva is not going to be instructed, or the Chitta is not going to take action of seeing the book. So the mind which was acting, bring the presence of the book, has now also helped by the unique consciousness in helping the Mahatattva to do the work of seeing something, or actually opening our existence. That's what I understood.
Yes, Bhagini, nicely said. So yeah, so that is the idea over here. So we do have the awareness that we have a mind, right? And that is because of the Jnatri Shakti, because of the witnessing entity of the mind, the Atma, right? Because of the Atma we have the awareness that I have a mind, right? So that we come to know that Jivatma and the mind are two separate entities, right? So we have a mind and we also have Atma, which is separate. The mind has three components: Chitta, Aham Tattva and Mahat Tattva. So even though the Atma, that is the unit consciousness, and mind are two separate entities, but they are very well integrated, and it's kind of very difficult to separate them, right? The Mahat Tattva is the feeling, the maipan, or the maipan, that the feeling of I exist, right? So Mahat Tattva is the feeling, it is the I feeling, it is the maipan, and the Jivatma is the Shuddha I. There is no feeling in the I. When I say I exist, there are two things, I and existence, right? Mahat Tattva gives the feeling of existence to I, and I is actually different. I is the pure I, right? I doesn't have any feeling, it is nothing, it is just pure Shuddha I, right? So actually whatever I am doing, I always have the feeling that I exist, I am doing, I'm always aware of my existence. Then that feeling of existence is what actually makes me, it motivates me, it motivates the Aham Tattva to go ahead and do some work or interact with the external world. So the actual work is done through Aham Tattva, through the Chitta, which is also part of the mind. So like for instance, if I want to see the book, then first of all I need to have the feeling of I, and that actually becomes the witness of the Aham Tattva, which is the doer I, which actually motivates the Chitta to go to the the external world and interact with external objects and take the shape of the book, and then Aham Tattva will actually see the book. So the components of mind, we have the Aham Tattva, and we also have the Mahat Tattva, which is the I feeling. So in addition to the mind, there is a separate consciousness, which is the pure I, which is the witnessing or the Sakshi Satta, which witnesses the mind. It does not do anything. The Sakshi Satta does not do anything. All it just does, it just stays there and it just watches the mind, right? It just gives the meaning to the mind, it gives the power to the mind. That's all it does. It's just there, right? It's not doing anything, which is just a Sakshi, which is just, it's a pure I, and it's just witnessing whatever the mind is doing. So we can clearly see that there is an I feeling, and also there is a separate I, which is the witnessing the mind. So the feeling that I exist, right? The feeling I exist is part of the Mahat Tattva, right? Just the pure existence, the Shuddha I, is the Atma or unit consciousness. So I get the feeling I exist, it is due to the atma. So we can say that, I get the feeling I exist. So we can see that atma, there is some entity behind this, which gives this feeling of I exist. And we can prove that this atma is separate from the mind, right? So I'm able to say that I exist because there is pure shuddha consciousness or shuddha purusha, because of which I am saying I exist. So we can say that there is a separation between the atma and mind, even though they are not two separate entities. They are just very well integrated. Okay. So to see the book aham tattva is the doer I and is also part of the mind. And because of the aham tattva, chitta goes out and takes the shape of the book, right? Chitta is like a movie screen that takes the shape of the book. And when chitta takes the shape of the book, then aham tattva actually sees the book. So this is possible because of the I feeling in the mind, which is motivating the aham tattva to see the book. So we can see that the mind has three components, and each component has different function. So how these different functions of the same I come about needs further clarification, right? So that is why it is being said that I exist presupposes the presence of I, right? To say I exist or I have the feeling of I, that means there must be another I, which is the possessing entity, which possesses the mind. So that entity is the atma or witnessing entity or the unit consciousness. And the presence of the unit consciousness actually was talked about in the previous paragraph also, right? So through concentrated thinking, one can observe that atma is separate from the mind, right? And that witnessing entity is the atman. That is the pure existence. The atma or jivatma or unit consciousness is the pure existence, and that is what gives the mahat tattva the feeling of I. So it is essentially, when we think about it, it is like, it is the different roles of like mother, right? So a lady who is a wife to her husband and is a mother to her children, and when she goes out, she is a lawyer in her in the court, right? So the same lady assumes different roles. She's wearing different hats, right? In each place she's wearing a different role. She's playing a different role. So the same way, the same I, right, the same purusha, the same supreme consciousness is taking all these different roles. The same I is the jivatma. That same I is taking a different functional form in the form of mind, right? It is taking the role of mahat tattva. It is taking the role of aham tattva. It is taking the role of chitta. So it's essentially the same I. It is different functional forms of the same I, right? Okay, any so essentially, that without this consciousness I will not have the feeling of I exist, right? I will not have this maitan. So that is what this paragraph is saying. Without this consciousness, without this unit consciousness, there will be no feeling of existence. So then so what then is going to witness the existence of I, right? What is then going to witness the existence of I? Right? So essentially what we are trying to say is that even though the unit consciousness is separate from the mind, but they are integrated. So that pure I is the jivatma, the unit consciousness, and the feeling of I, that is mahat tattva, which is the component of the mind, and then the doer I is the aham tattva, done I is chitta. That is how we have the different functional forms of the same I. So if they is that clear?
Bhavini, please repeat the previous one, no? You said the doer I is that.
Yeah. So we first have this, the pure I, the pure I, it doesn't have any feeling, it has nothing, it's just pure existence, it's pure I. That pure I is unit consciousness, right? And when we get that I feeling, right, it is a different functional form of the same I, right? That unit consciousness, when we get that I feeling because of the influence of prakriti, which we'll be talking about, then we get this mahat tattva, which is the feeling of the I, which is the first component of mind, right? And the next is the aham tattva, which is also the same modified I, which is the doer I, which is the one that actually does the actions, right? Aham tattva is the one that does the actions, that's why we call it as a doer I. And chitta is the done I. We say done I because it takes the shape of the external object. Whatever if the aham tattva wants to see the book, right, then the chitta takes the shape of the book. If the aham tattva want to hear a sound, chitta becomes the sound. So that is why it is a done I. So the aham tattva is the doer I and chitta is the done I. And the atma, jivatma, is the witnessing entity of all of these. But what we need to understand is that all of these different components of mind are essentially the same I in a modified form. They are all functional forms of the I, just like a lady playing different roles, right? So that is okay. Is that clear?
Bhayini, thank you.
Okay.
Mahodaya, is there a reference for all this? I mean, because all these concepts, right? The aham tattva, mahat tattva. So, are they all coming from some scriptures or?
Yeah, you're coming to the shivir, right? It's a good question.
Yeah.
You're coming to the shivir, so you will get to know more about it.
Okay, Mom.
Yeah, you'll get to know more about it.
Also, there's a mention about unit consciousness. So whenever the word unit comes, that tells me that there is something bigger than that. So is there something else controlling this? Is it? I mean, because
no, something else. In the sense, we have the jivatma, and then we have the shuddha, the nirguna purusha, right? We have the jivatma, and we have the nirguna purusha. So as we go into the further karapatras, you will get more clarity on what is the nirguna purusha and what is the jivatma. Are they the same or how, right? So essentially, like if you imagine that this ocean is the consciousness, is the nirguna purusha, right? Let's say that there is an ocean and that ocean is the nirguna purusha. So imagine a cup holding water inside, right? And the cup is floating on the ocean, right? So
right.
So the water inside the cup is the jivatma, right? And the cup is the mind. The cup is the mind, and the ocean is the nirguna purusha.
Oh wow! Okay.
So the water inside the cup and the water outside, it's the same water, right? So we cannot say one is big and one is small, right? The water that is inside the cup is the same water that is outside, right? So it is.
Yeah.
So the mind, the cup is the mind, and the mind is surrounded by the consciousness, right? And the cup also contains the consciousness. Cup also contains the water. The consciousness inside the cup is the jivatma, the individual soul, while the ocean outside the cup, it represents paramatma, the supreme consciousness, or parama purusha, right? The ego, the aham tattva, the mind, that is that keeps the water inside the cup separate from the water outside. So through sadhana, spiritual practice, right, when we realize aham brahmasmi, right?
Yeah.
So the ego that makes us identify as, I am Rama, I am Shama, I am Krishna, or whatever, that ego dissolves through sadhana. So when the ego dissolves, then ultimately the Jivatma, the individual soul, and the Paramatma, supreme consciousness, they get merged. They are essentially the same. The awareness that I have a mind is different from the pure consciousness, right?
Okay.
Yeah, the awareness that I have, yeah. So this consciousness or Purusha within us is actually the same as the infinite Purusha, the Nirguna Purusha. It is only separated by this feeling of ego.
Ego.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah.
So
it is
that
separated
ocean
by
example, then. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Based on that example, so all Jivatmas are, basically the same. Then we are all like,
Exactly.
it's all one. Oh, okay.
Exactly. Yeah. That is why we say Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi is Aham Tat. Why do we say that? Why do we say that Aham Tattvamasi? Tattvamasi. Why do we say that? Or Aham Brahmasmi. Why do we say that? It's because the consciousness within us is the same as the consciousness outside, the Nirguna Purusha, right? So this awareness, this feeling, this feeling, this awareness is the I feeling is the it is linked with the mind due to the past samskaras. It's linked with the mind due to the past impressions, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So
thank you, Mother.
Yeah. So essentially, it is the ego that keeps the water inside the cup, separate from the outside, right? So when we do the sadhana, what we are trying to do is we are trying to dissolve that ego, right? When we get rid of mind, when we get rid of the mind, right? When the mind dissolves, then it's just like salt dissolving in water, right? So if the mind completely dissolves in that Shuddha Purusha, then Jivatma merges with the Paramatma.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of like right, like you wanted to know more details about how this where we're getting this karapatras and all that, right? So when you come to the shiviram, you will get more clarity. You will understand, right? So you will be directly interacting with Mohodaya. Mohodaya will be there. Swarup Mohodaya will be there. So we can directly interact with him. We can have all sorts of questions and get more clarity.
Sure, Mohodaya. Sure,
Okay.
Mohodaya. Dhanyavad.
Okay. So we can actually move on. So Hamsini Bhagini, do you want to read? I'm sure you can read, Bhagini. You did a good job last time. Are you there?
Yes, sorry, I just went to get some water.
Okay. Do you want to read?
I'll try.
Yes, please.
But the witnessing entity and the pure I feeling to appear to be different functional forms of the same I. In fact, the I that witnesses my existence also manifests as the I of I exist. The witnessing I is the unit consciousness or Atman, and it manifests itself as Mahatattva or Buddhitattva, thus establishes
Mahatattva, not Mahatattva, Mahatattva.
Mahatattva, and thus establishes its own existence. It is the witnessing entity or unit consciousness which, on taking up the function of the I of I exist, is called Mahatattva or Buddhitattva. Thus, unit consciousness is not only consciousness, it also has a quality with the help of which it manifests itself through different functions. This quality is not consciousness, as otherwise it would not be necessary for unit consciousness to manifest itself as Mahatattva and express itself as I of I exist, which is different from witnessing entity. Consciousness and quality are therefore two separate entities in Atman or unit consciousness. As this quality is different from consciousness, it must have been obtained from somewhere. There must be some other factors to qualify Atman to make it manifest itself as Mahatattva. That which gives this quality to Atman, which is called Prakriti. In other words, it is due to the Prakriti qualifying Atman that it is manifested as Mahatattva and gets the feeling of I. I don't fully understand.
So what you do, Bhagini, what you do is that you take every line and see what you've understood and try to explain in your own words what you've understood. So don't look at it holistically, just take each line and see what you've understood. Read one line and try to explain.
But the witnessing entity and pure I feeling to appear to be different functional forms of the same I feel like it's saying that the feeling of I has multiple functions, but it is the same I that we use.
So there is this I, which is the witnessing entity, right? It's the same I which is taking different functional forms, right? That same I, which is the unit consciousness, that is taking the function of Mahat Tattva, that is taking the function of Aham Tattva, that is taking the function of Chitta. So just like I was telling you that a mother takes, a lady, she takes different roles, right? A lady is, she's a mother to her children, she's a wife to her husband, and then she's a lawyer in the court, right? So the same lady, she takes different roles, right? Different functional roles. So do we say that there are four ladies there? No, right? We say it's the same lady who's taking different functional roles. The same manner, it's the same I, the consciousness, which is taking these different functional forms. And how does that happen? It will be explained further. Go ahead.
In fact, that the I that witnesses my existence also manifests itself as the I of I exist. I think that it means that the I that states I exist is also manifesting itself as I.
No, it's the pure I, which is the witnessing entity, right? The pure I, which is the witnessing entity, it manifests itself as the I feeling, right? It is only the unit consciousness which is there. That unit consciousness, it is taking a different functional form, and that functional form is I feel I exist. I have the feeling, I feeling, right? So that unit consciousness, it is taking the role of I feel, just like a lady is taking the role of mother. So it is this Jivatma which is taking the role of I exist, or the I feeling, right? So that same I, it is manifesting itself as I exist. Okay, go ahead.
The witnessing I is unit consciousness or Atman, and it manifests itself as Mahatattva or Prakriti-tattva, and thus establishes its own existence. The same I establishes its own base, own understanding, I guess.
Yeah, just what I just mentioned. The witnessing the Jivatma or the unit consciousness or Atma, right? It itself is appearing as the Mahat Tattva. It itself is appearing as the Mahat Tattva. So it is not too different. It is not too different. It is the same I which is taking the role of Mahat Tattva. Okay, go ahead. And it's establishing its own existence. So originally there was only this I, and then I get the feeling of I. I get the feeling of I. When we talk about the Shuddha Purusha, there is no feeling or there is nothing. There is just Shuddha I, pure I, pure I, pure I. Then when I get the feeling of I exist and then start getting the feeling, then it's all part of the mind. The feelings come because of the mind. So then when I get the feeling of I, then it is the Mahat Tattva. Okay, go ahead.
Thus, unit consciousness is not only consciousness.
No,
It
no,
also has,
you have to line in between. It is the witnessing. Hmm?
it is the witnessing entity or unit consciousness which, on taking up the function of I exist, is called Mahatattva or Buddhitattva.
Mm-hmm. Go
The
ahead.
witnessing entity, when it functions as of I exist,
Mm-hmm.
it is called either Mahatattva or Buddhitattva.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Thus, unit consciousness is not only consciousness, it also has a quality with the help of which it manifests itself through different functions. So, the unit consciousness is not only qualified as consciousness, but it has the ability to manifest itself through different ways and functions.
Right. Right. So the same lady, I said there is one particular woman, right? So when she gets the qualities of being a mother, right? Then she is mother to her child. So she gets the qualities of being a mother, and if she has the qualities of being a lawyer, then she is in the court, right? If she is having the qualities of being a wife, then she is a wife to her husband. So each of that particular role requires some skill, right? It requires some qualities, right? So the same way, the unit consciousness, when it gets the qualities, when it gets a quality, and because of that quality, it is manifesting itself as the Mahat Tattva. It is manifesting to perform different functions. When it gets the gunas, right, then it is taking up different roles. So it is getting extra skill, right? Just like in ordinary parlance, when I say when I get extra skill, then I'm playing the role of a lawyer. When I'm getting some qualities to be a lawyer, then I become a lawyer. Then if I have the qualities to be a mother, then I'm becoming a mother to my children. So each of that has some functional expertise, right? So like that, this unit consciousness, it is with the help of the qualities, it is taking up different roles, right? And this quality is not consciousness. Go ahead.
This quality is not consciousness, as otherwise it would not be necessary for unit consciousness to manifest itself as Mahatattva and express itself as I of I exist. Uh,
Which is different from the witnessing entity.
which is different from the witnessing entity.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. It says
Mm-hmm.
this quality, is it the quality of like I exist?
No, it is not the quality of I exist. That's what is going to explain further, right? There is this unit consciousness. So this unit consciousness cannot play these different functional forms unless it has some qualities, right? In order to play the role of Mahat Tattva, to play the role of Aham Tattva, and to play the role of Chitta, the unit consciousness needs to get some qualities, needs to get some expertise, right? Some gunas. And where does it get those gunas? Where does it get those qualities? These qualities do not belong to the consciousness. The consciousness is pure. It doesn't have any qualities, right? But it gets these qualities from somebody else, right? Who does it get these qualities so that it can perform these different functions? The function of Mahat Tattva, the function of Aham Tattva, the function of Chitta, right? That is what is going to get explained further. Read further.
Uh,
Consciousness and its
con-
quality.
Consciousness and its quality are therefore two separate entities in Atman or unit consciousness, as this quality is different from other consciousness. It must have been obtained from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Consciousness has two separate entities.
So the consciousness is not quality. Consciousness does not have any quality, but because of some qualities, the consciousness is taking the role of aham tattva, mahat tattva, and chitta. And where does this quality is coming from? The quality is actually held by some other entity, and that entity is called as prakriti. Prakriti has those qualities, and consciousness does not have any qualities. The consciousness is separate and the quality is separate, right? So the quality is obtained by consciousness from some other entity, and right, and because of those qualities the consciousness is appearing or manifesting as mahat tattva, aham tattva, and chitta, right? And what is it that gives this quality to the consciousness or the atma is called as prakriti. Prakriti has the gunas, qualities or gunas. Prakriti has the gunas, and the gunas of the prakriti get attached to the purusha, to the consciousness, and therefore the consciousness appears, manifests itself as mahat tattva, aham tattva, and chitta, right? So there are essentially two entities over here that you need to understand. One is consciousness, the shuddha purusha, which is the I, right? And then there is this prakriti, which has gunas, which we'll be talking about in further paragraphs, gunas or qualities, right? So the prakriti qualifies the atma with her gunas, and as a result atma takes the different roles, the mahat tattva, aham tattva, and the chitta. Because of the prakriti's gunas, atma is appearing as mahat tattva and it gets the feeling of I, right? So like for instance, you are Hamsini Bhagini, and on the stage, right, if you have acting skills, then on the stage you take a particular role, right? Like let's say you play the role of a queen, then you're playing that role of queen because you have some acting capabilities, you have some acting qualities, right? So we are saying that Hamsini Bhagini is the consciousness, and the acting quality, you got those acting qualities, let's say from your teacher, right? So the teacher is prakriti, and the teacher has those acting qualities, and she gave those acting qualities to you. As a result of that, you took the role of a queen. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah.
Like that, the consciousness does not have any qualities, and prakriti has all the qualities. Prakriti is giving the qualities to the consciousness, and as a result the consciousness is taking the role of mahat tattva. It is getting the feeling of I. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is this paragraph making sense? So let me explain okay, I think so I kind of briefly explained, but I want to go a little bit detail on this paragraph. I can cover it in the next week because the time is already up right now. So so essentially the mind has three components which we know, right? And in addition to the mind we have this unit consciousness. They are two separate entities. They are very integrated, and it's difficult to distinguish them. So atma is the pure I. It does not have any feeling, it does not have any I feeling, and this I feeling, this I feeling actually is the mahat tattva is the I feeling. And whatever I'm doing, I always have this feeling I exist, right? And this feeling actually motivates the aham tattva to engage with the external world. The actual work is done by aham tattva to the chitta, which is also part of the mind, right? So this I feeling is as a result of the quality which is getting attached with the consciousness, and it is the prakriti which is qualifying the purusha with her attributes, with her gunas or with her qualities, and as a result the consciousness is manifesting or is taking the role of the different components of mind. Is it making clear?
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing I'm a little confused about is how, how does Prakriti exactly give the qualities to consciousness?
How does Prakriti, how does, when you say how does Prakriti give, what do you mean by that? So we are going to see that further. So basically Prakriti and Purusha, we have two entities, Prakriti and Purusha, right? They are actually one. They're so integrated, but for our understanding we call them as two separate entities, Prakriti and Purusha, right? So this whole jagat, this whole srishti, this whole universe has originated from Prakriti and Purusha, right? So there are two sides of a coin, Prakriti and Purusha. Purusha is consciousness and Prakriti is the Prakriti has the gunas, and Prakriti gives those gunas to the gunas get attached to Purusha. Gunas get attached to Purusha, and as a result of that, this we get this mind with the different components. And how exactly the Prakriti gives the gunas to Purusha, all that will be explained in greater detail in the following Karapatras. So I'm not going to go into that. So you just understand for now that there is Prakriti and there is Purusha, and Prakriti has gunas and she is giving the gunas to Purusha. As a result, Purusha is taking these forms. So how she is giving the gunas and all that will be discussed in the future Karapatra. Okay, Bhagini?
Yes.
Okay. Otherwise you're following along, right, Bhagini?
Yeah.
Okay, very good, you did a very good job. Okay. Okay, sorry, it's over time, I apologize. So we'll conclude the session over here. So धन्यवादः, नमस्कारः.
धन्यवादः भगिनी.
धन्यवादः, नमस्कारः.
धन्यवादः.
धन्यवादः.